Hi, I'm Ben Felder, news editor of the Piedmont Surrey Gazette. Joining me today is Greg Evans, sports editor here at the Gazette, and we are entering the final week of the high school football season. Piedmont coming off a big 51-0 win last week against Guymon. They've got one game to go, but Greg, these Piedmont Wildcats are playoff bound, regardless of what happens this Friday night. So a lot to celebrate, but the season is far from over yet for the Wildcats. At least two more games to go this year. But before we talk about Friday's game and maybe a little bit about the playoffs, let's talk about that Guymon game last week. And now, this was a team that when Piedmont went to Guymon last year and played them, it was
at least a single overtime game. It was one of the closest, most exciting games they played last year. Kind of let them end last season on a really high note by winning back-to-back games. And this year, I even heard a few players on the sideline going, "Man, we just barely beat these guys last year." And I think everyone, even in the stands, kind of saw in this one game how much Piedmont has improved this year, because 51 points in one half is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And it just didn't seem like Piedmont could do anything wrong. Cassius Calhoun got a ton of yards on the ground. They didn't even have to pass that much to get as much as they did. I know Daryl Burns got an interception that he returned for a touchdown. I mean, on defense, I mean, there's just so many things that we're working on against Guymon. You have to be excited going into the playoffs with that kind of game right towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
So
and Piedmont's final game on the regular season is another winnable game against Cash. They host that this Friday. Now, the coaches won't say this, but they finished the season with two winnable games. You expect maybe not as much as scoring, but similar results against Cash. Does that hurt or help Piedmont going into the playoffs? I mean, to play against two opponents that aren't.
I definitely think it's a momentum builder, because the last loss Piedmont has was obviously Bishop McGuinness. Very tough game, big loss for Piedmont, and but ending the season with two games that they can win by big margins should be able to give at least the players just a really, really big head of steam going into whoever they're going to play in the playoff. And I think that confidence is a really good and big thing, especially if they can get something like have those guys get out early in the game, so they don't have to risk anything going right before a big playoff game next week. So I think these last two games kind of come perfectly for the season.
Yeah, the two things I've noticed really about these Wildcats this year is they are a team that's confident, and they're a team that's always pretty well prepared.
Very, very well prepared.
They go into games prepared, and they go into games really believing that they're going to come out on top, no matter who the opponent is. Okay, well, let's preview the playoffs just a little bit. What does the matchup look like for Piedmont in the first round?
Right now, they're going to be playing the second place team, likely if they beat Cash, of course, of Class 4A District 2, who's either going to be Douglas, Glenpool, or Hara. All three teams are going to have one loss in district right now. Douglas plays Cushing, I believe, who good squad, but Douglas should be able to win that game, and that means they'll be the district champions of that class. And Glenpool and Hara play tomorrow. And whoever wins that game is going to be where Piedmont goes for their first playoff game. Obviously, we know Hara. Hara is a team that beat Piedmont, shut them out, but Piedmont was never really out of that game, as we've talked about before.
Yeah.
And Glenpool is one of those teams that they started the season out really slow, but they've really built up, and I think they have the same record as Piedmont right now. They're playing really hard, rushing attack football, and Either team that Piedmont plays in the first round of playoffs is going to be a really good game. You need a lot of fans out there, but both of them are games that I think Piedmont can win and kind of reach their goal of reaching the second round.
Yeah. Well, you're just glad to be in the playoffs, and I'm sure Piedmont will take whoever they have to face. But you have to probably believe that they're maybe leaning a little bit towards more wanting Hara.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a lot closer than going to Glenpool. Yeah. And you're right. It's a Hara team that, despite getting shut out on the road, that might have been a different Piedmont team back then in the early days of the season, and it'd be really interesting to see what a rematch would do.
Yeah, just to see how much both teams grown, because I definitely know that Piedmont's a much better team now than they were the second week of the season.
Yeah. Well, a great season for Piedmont. It's not over yet. The season ends this Friday. Their final game of the season, their final home game, will be out at Stout Field. We'll be out there at the game. Follow us on PiedmontToday.com afterwards for highlights, stories, and recaps from the game. Follow us on Twitter for live game updates. And next week, log on to PiedmontToday.com for more playoff preview coverage. And in next week's Gazette, we'll have a special playoff preview guide. updating you on everything that you can expect for the playoff run that Piedmont hopefully is going to go on here. I'm Ben. This is Greg. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.